welcome, good afternoon, good evening, good night. So I know that there are people here from several different places, and thank you for joining us today. For using your how to raise or how to use your digital voice for advocacy. We're partnering today with World Affairs Council, which is based here in Pittsburgh, as is iGeneration Youth, and we're going to be hearing from Marlise and Mathis and Hope, and a little bit from Aaron Salmon and various people just on how to use like various social media platforms to both connect with people, how to construct better messages, how to be in conversations, etc., and use these tools for digital advocacy. This is the last session of what was the 6-part series, and then I'm just going to ask Kathleen, who is here from World Affairs Council, just to talk a tiny bit about the COVID Plus series, just to give you guys some context. I realize everyone here was not present at all of those sessions, and you don't have to be. And all of these tools that we're going to talk about and share today are things that can be very useful, for advocacy, no matter what type of advocacy you're doing. So Kathleen, if you can just hello, and just give people a little bit of background, and then we can get started.
Sure. Hi, I'm Kathleen. I'm really glad to be joining you all today, and I just thank you all for also joining us. I work with the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh, and so students from the World Affairs Council and also from our partner Global Minds have come together this summer to create this COVID X series, which is a series of conversations that have taken place since July through today, our final workshop, around how the pandemic is intersecting with society and affecting society, and how young people can work together to build back better. So framing these sessions around the Building Back Better agenda, which is an agenda that looks at post-disaster recovery and how, instead of reconstructing the systems that we had in place before a disaster occurs, how can we actually look at what we learn from how those systems are actually serving us and create and build back better systems that serve everyone better. And so throughout the series, we've examined how the pandemic has affected everything from the economy to education to politics to healthcare to the environment. And as Lori mentioned, today's workshop is meant to be framed around how young people can now actually take action. So today is that opportunity where we're taking our learning and our conversation and we're moving towards action. And since so much of the world today is existing in digital spaces, we thought it was more relevant than ever that today's seminar and workshop be focused on how to advocate and raise your voice, whether it's on issues that relate to building back better or on any issue that is important for young people to advocate around, and how can you do that in a digital environment to really make an impact. So we're thankful that iGeneration Youth has agreed to partner with us to help facilitate this workshop and the conversations that you're all going to have. And Lori, I'll turn it back over to you.
We have with us Hope Khan, and she'll introduce herself in a moment, but Hope Khan is going to talk a little bit about how to use Twitter for advocacy. So Hope, it is all yours.
Yeah, so I'm Hope. I am a rising sophomore at the University of Maryland. I'm studying journalism, and I have a minor in nonprofit leadership and social innovation. So I am very passionate about social justice issues and the intersection of journalism with it. And I'm also a reporter for iGeneration Youth. But yeah, let me share my screen. Okay. So I am going to focus on Twitter for advocacy. And I know not everyone uses Twitter in like the same capacity, so I'll kind of go through the different uses that I personally use it for to give kind of like personal examples. So Twitter is really good for networking and building an audience and connecting with people. And you have the ability to kind of voice your own concerns and opinions and thoughts, but also engage with other people's as well. So first you would want to like start with a strategy and you would want to know like what impact you want to have and who you're trying to reach. So are you trying to reach policymakers, community members, community leaders, just members of your organization? And you'll want to kind of use that to like know what you're tweeting, but you don't have to stick with that. You can change it up in every tweet. So what should I post? So this is kind of where you can get creative and think about what you actually want to say. Like, so obviously you can see that you can like share knowledge or resources, and you can start a conversation. So with iGeneration Youth, when we write an article, Twitter is used as a platform to kind of push out that article and connect to the people who are involved, and also try to get it read by as many people as possible, because that is obviously the goal of writing an article, is to get it read by people. But then if you're involved in advocacy, for example, I, on my campus, co-founded a group that is working towards getting free and accessible menstrual products on our campus. So our group is called Get Over It. And so we started a Twitter for that. And so our purpose with that is to more so connect with like the Maryland campus and like the students, especially right now, where like our goal is to show that there is a need, so then we can fight that like and show that there is a need for it. So one of the most recent things we tweeted was a survey link. So that is just like an example of how you can use Twitter, and with that you can gain momentum with retweets and likes. And so also you can gain more momentum with hashtags. So hashtags is a great way to reach out and get a larger audience, with not just the people who are in your following and follower list. You'll want to do your research. So when we post a article link on Twitter, when we tweet it, we do a lot of research on like what popular hashtags are linked to that kind of theme. So with advocacy work and social justice work, there is a whole community for that, and you will want to do your research on what hashtags are the most popular right now, but you also don't want to overdo it, which is tip number 5, because too many hashtags gets a little annoying, and I think everyone would agree with that. But yeah, hashtags are a great way to like build a campaign. So social media rule of thirds, you'll want to promote yourself, organization, or your brand. So assuming that you're using your own personal Twitter, it's kind of hard to find a balance, I've found, of like just tweeting like, you know, fun memes or whatever, but then also like doing like the work that you want to do. So like my personal Twitter is very much like journalism stuff, social advocacy stuff, and then like I said, I help run the Get Over It Twitter. So that's where we focus on like following on campus like groups and students and other related like menstrual movement organizations. So that's like, you'll have to curate like a following and a followers list that you want to see on your feed that you can connect with. So the second is share ideas and stories from thought leaders, friends, and allies of the cause you're advocating for. So it is so easy to hit a retweet button, to quote a tweet. One of the best things like with Twitter is like, it is real time. Like someone is tweeting something, you are seeing it, you can retweet it. Engage in conversations with people, retweet the things that you are passionate about. And then, like I said, engage in everyday conversation. It is very easy just to reply to a tweet with someone who is advocating for the same thing as you. You can join like lists on Twitter too, and you can get kind of more people who are passionate about the same thing that you are. So with a tweet, you have about 240 characters, which is not a lot of characters. But it's so important to use each character to your advantage and to tell a story. So in the slide, you can see it's from an article that iGeneration Youth published, and we were very smart with it, and we kind of said what it was about, but also tagged the people involved, and then also used smart hashtags. Like you can see hashtag COVID-19, hashtag vaccine, and there's like a little quote in there. So with a tweet, you'll want to be as strategic as possible with telling the story that you're trying to get across. So identifying the stakeholders, like I said, you're going to want to find all the people involved, follow everyone, tag the people that you want to see, because that's who you want to attract to your Twitter. And especially with like advocating for certain things, you're going to want as many people to see it as possible, because that's the whole goal of it. So make a clear call to action. What do you want people to do? So like with the survey link that we tweeted out from Get Over It's Twitter, we wanted people to take it. So we've had a bunch of people like quote tweet it. And that's another important thing is if you are like leading a group, get your followers to retweet it, because then all of their followers will see it. And so align so that the tweets with goals will serve a purpose. So with iGeneration Youth, we create a social media plan. That's where we go through everyone involved in the story, and we get hashtags, and we reach out to a lot of organizations to try to help promote our article. So assuming that you guys aren't all writing articles for your advocacy work, you can still kind of make a mock social media plan. Find organizations who are involved, let's say in the menstrual movement. There are a bunch of groups on different campuses and just nationwide that are achieving the same thing that you are trying, and connecting with that is very valuable. And then lastly, analytics and insight. You want to measure your impact. It's very easy to tell on a tweet, like the engagement. You can see how many people look at it, how many people like it, how many people go to your page, like just from that tweet. So let's say someone retweets it. And then that's the best way to use that information to grow. And yeah, so if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Well, I actually have something that I just want to actually comment on.
Yeah.
When it comes to, and then I'll have a question actually for the whole audience, for anyone who, wants to discuss it. But, we are a journalism organization. Our work does get put out through a syndicate. So, that is actually our biggest way of getting our message out. We are about really 2 years old as an organization, and we've been spending probably the majority of our time working on our content. So, like many people in this group, we are actually relatively new to like working on our Twitter strategy, our social media strategy, but it doesn't mean that we don't have one. And one thing that I want to say is, I worked at the Wall Street Journal for 10 years. I've actually just gone back to the Wall Street Journal. And I know that for the amount of content, like the amount of time that we spend, creating the content, doing the interviews, etc. I know at the Wall Street Journal, and it's something that we're starting to do at iGeneration Youth, it's like, take a really, really strategic approach to the tweets. And, two things that I want to say that I see, young people doing quite a bit is that, there's a message that you want to get out. Say you write an article, or, you do a comic, or you have an image, or anything that it is that you want to put out there into the world. One of the most common things I see people doing is sort of the equivalent of, hey, look at me, or look, I made this thing. Then there's a link to it and go look at it. And what I always say to people is that you know, that kind of approach. It's like, yeah, like people who love you, people who support you, your mom, your grandma. Like if you're like, hey, I did this thing with a link, look at it, you know what I mean? Those are the people who are going to look at it. But like really, if you imagine trying to stand out on Twitter, where I forget the number, I mean, it's just a huge, you know, number of tweets that go out like every second. Just like being out there trying to connect with people by saying, hey, here's a thing, here's a link, click on it, is not going to get you anywhere. So like the one thing that we always stress is that even though it's a tweet or whatever kinds of social media it is, that you should be thinking of them as a little story. So it's like if you're dealing with Twitter, you've got 240 words to tell a story. And, you know, in the same way, I mean, we've all, you know, been in kindergarten, we've all done storytelling, you know, you should try to like pick out something that has like some tension or, you know, a lead, like a hook, all of these, you know, these types of elements that would be in a story, you should take advantage of them for your messages. So that was the one thing. We put the Twitter first. We did the Twitter presentation part of it first. It was one that we did, you know, 10 minutes at the end of a previous COVID presentation, because many of the elements or just sort of the rules and ideas there will be, you know, sort of the same for Instagram and the other social media things. So we may refer back to them, etc., or may not, but just keep them in mind. We're going to move in a moment to Mathis to talk a little bit about Instagram. Just before we do that, I just want to ask, I know that there are people here from, you know, not just the United States, but people from different countries. And, you know, I imagine just my own question that, I mean, social media is the same everywhere. But I mean, I'm curious if there's anyone in, you know, who's listening today, who's like seen any amazing like examples of Twitter, of like the use of Twitter for raising your voice out there that they want to share. I mean, has anyone seen anything out there in the Twitterverse that has been amazing, that they thought was particularly effective, that they would just want to share here? All right, we're gonna move, we're gonna talk a little bit about Instagram, as I said, and I'd like to introduce Mathis Edwards. So Mathis.
Hi, my name is Mathis. I'm a social media manager for IGY, and I myself have been involved in some advocacy projects. A couple years ago, I did a week-long human rights symposium where I learned a lot about advocating, and we worked on our own advocacy project. And also this past month, I was given the privilege of speaking at a local Black Lives Matter protest in my town, and I also participated in my citywide Black Lives Matter protest. And I've done like a few other things. So I'd like to think of myself as somewhat of a human rights and social justice advocate. So yeah, today I'm going to talk a little bit about Instagram and how Instagram can be a helpful tool in basically getting your message out. And I know a lot of people our age use Instagram.
Sorry.
Wait, can you go back? Yeah, thank you. A lot of people our age use Instagram, but a lot of the time it's for more personal things, just like sharing photos of us and our friends or selfies or whatever. So there's another angle we can take on Instagram that is really helpful for advocacy. So I'm actually going to start with the second bullet, which is stories and story highlights. Posting on your story for your followers is super, super helpful, because the way the Instagram algorithm works, a lot of times like posts that were just posted get shoved to the bottom of our feeds, because a few years ago the Instagram algorithm changed so that it's not really by like time it was posted on Instagram. It kind of just gets mixed up by like how likely you are to like a photo or be interested in it. So that's how stories can be helpful, because everyone gets the same, like everyone can see everyone's story. It's not hidden or anything. And posts are helpful, but honestly, stories are a lot easier to look at. They're smaller. They're you know, it's like for people with short attention span, they're really helpful. And with that comes story highlights, which if you post a story and it's 24 hours or up, which is how a story works, just like Snapchat, you can highlight it and put it in certain categories so that when someone comes to your page, they will be able to see that story for as long as you have your Instagram page. And if you plan on doing advocacy posts, just know that I think there was a study that said that people are more likely to like photos that involve you or or like someone they're familiar with. So that's why I like to focus on stories. But there's also another feature on stories that's helpful, which is why I want to focus on stories, and that's donation stickers. So you can actually kind of like search up a charity or nonprofit or whatever, and link in your story a way to donate. And this is super helpful if you have like family and friends that are really like engaged in your Instagram, which is really always really nice. You could always ask people, hey guys, I have something up in my story, if you could maybe go and donate just $1 or $2 or whatever. I found that to be super helpful. A lot of my friends have actually done that and raised a decent amount of money. So which I think is really, really helpful. You can also link petitions and stuff like that, which brings me to Linktree, which is a really cool kind of like, I don't know, like web page where you can click one link, but it'll bring you to just like a list of a whole bunch of other links, because a lot of times we want to focus on more than one issue, but we don't want to like clog people's like Instagrams, because after a certain point they're going to stop listening to what we have to say for just spamming them. So you could always put, hey guys, I just put out a link to lots of important websites or petitions or donation sites or like information sites, and that is super helpful, and it just makes everything a little bit more compact and clean. Another thing, another strategy that people sometimes forget about is you can have a personal account but also make it a business account. As confusing as that sounds and how it sounds contradictory, it can actually be super helpful. All you have to do is link your Facebook, and you can choose the category, and there's an option for personal blog, there's tons of options. And what the benefit of a business profile is that you can totally track your engagement. So you can track how many views you've had on your page in a week. You can track who shared your post, how many people have shared your post, like as far as Instagram posts. You can also track who's seen your story posts, obviously, which is a feature for everyone, but also how many people have clicked through and skipped, or people who have X'd out, or people who have kind of like stayed and lingered and looked at what you had to see, and which is super helpful. You can see how many people have saved your posts, and it takes like about a minute or two to link to your Facebook, which I know a lot of people don't use Facebook, but it's really worth it just for this feature. So I found that helpful when I was trying to figure out how many people were engaging in my social media. So yeah, and then the next thing about stories is aesthetic. So let's see.
Go to the next frame.
Yeah. So as I was talking about stories, which is my main focus for today, what I've seen a pattern of kind of these more aesthetically pleasing stories, because we tend to like skip things that don't catch our eye. Obviously, we're humans, it's human nature. So I've seen a lot of posts where the color palette is super nice and calming or catches your eye, and that's super important, because as much as we don't want to make our advocacy projects like trendy and cute and kind of like lighthearted, we also want people to be engaged. And so if we don't like add some kind of like flair to it, people are going to kind of just skip over, because who's likely to look at like a blank white screen with a few like black words on it. So as you can see, there's 3 posts here. One is about the Black Lives Matter movement, I Can't Breathe. One post is about toxic masculinity, and another is a Black Lives Matter post. And all 3 of these were posts I saw on my Instagram stories from other people. None of these are mine. I pulled ones that I found interesting, and these are only the ones that I remember. And the reason I remember them was because they were so visually pleasing to me. And on these posts, as you can see, if you can see on the orange one in the middle about toxic masculinity, it has these little, two white squares. That means that if you click on that, you're going to be brought to a post, and in that caption is going to be like probably loads of information, links and everything. So another thing you can do is you can use stories to add posts. So it's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. I think most of you would probably understand, but how posts and stories are separate. You can also put a post on your story so that people can find it more easily, because like I said, not every single post shows up in people's feeds, and you can also post other people's posts on your story, which is kind of an interesting feature, if that makes sense. So you also want to make sure that what you're posting is eye-catching, because people get flooded with stories. People post stories every single day, and it's important that you are engaging your community. So yeah. If you guys have any questions about that, I'm willing to answer.
Is that okay? that's the last one for you, right, Mathis?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mathis. Okay. It's just interesting. I just want to share sort of a funny thing. I almost want to ask, like, how many of you guys have an ugly feet? and I say that in a joking way. When we actually brought Marlise and Mathis on, and I think, lots of people do it where they just think about the Instagram, each post separately. And, for us, I mean, we're a magazine, and I like to think that our magazine is visually pleasing. And we have, we have a lot of really, really talented artists. So, I mean, when we started our Instagram, and if you were to actually go there, you'll see that we actually recently just deleted everything. We decided that we were just going to start over. But, when Marlise and Mathis came along and agreed to help us with the Instagram, they were trying to be polite, but then it just turned out that it was like, your Instagram feed, well, it's just ugly. And what we had done is that, because we have so many talented artists, and we thought initially that we would just use the Instagram just to put the artwork on. But then, of course, like in a magazine, it's not like you have a color theme for your magazine. So we were literally taking all of the artwork that was beautiful on its own. But then when you just sort of put them next to each other with no thought whatsoever. I mean, we had, an Instagram feed that looked like, I don't know, like a bad Christmas explosion or something. So I don't know, that was just something, that whenever I go on Instagram now, I always notice, I'm like, oh, wow, no theme, no whatever. But just mentioning it. So, okay, if no one has any questions, we're gonna move on, and we will hear from Marlise next, who's gonna talk a little bit about video. So I need to share my screen again. Hold on a second. All right, and we're going to talk about videos here. So I'm going to stop sharing just to make sure I have the right one, because I am old and I am not very good at this. So okay, so we're seeing my screen, and then I'd like to or let me sorry, I should introduce Marlise first. So Marlise, hello.
Hi, I'm Marlise Edwards, and I'm a sophomore in Bethlehem, New York. I am also a social media manager for iGeneration Youth. My main focus for advocacy right now is Black Lives Matter. I sort of speak out through Instagram, and I went to a couple of protests. And yeah, I'm going to talk about how to advocate for a cause through videos, mostly YouTube, but I will also talk a little bit about TikTok.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so first we're going to talk about YouTube. So first you need to get a following. So we're going to talk about how to gain subscribers. Collaborating with people for a similar cause will make it much easier, especially if they have similar content. If they enjoy a video that somebody else makes and you're mentioned in the video and your channel is linked below, people will be really likely to go over to your channel too and subscribe and check it out. Now, this is really important. You need to make sure that you have an eye-catching thumbnail. That is where most of your views come from, is when people see it just on their recommended or whatever. They need to be aesthetically pleasing, and a lot more people will be likely to click on your video, which will gain you more views. And if the video is good, more subscribers too. And lastly, add hashtags. As you can see to the right, that's an example of what the hashtags look like on YouTube. This is helpful to curate the viewers that see your content, and it makes it easier for people to find videos on the topic that they're looking for. The end card, it says add a subscribe button to your end card. So if you can go to slide number 2, Lori. So it's circled in the yellow, but you can add a feature that allows people to subscribe to your channel just right there at the end of your video. It's an easy way to remind someone to subscribe and help you gain more subscribers. So once you have a big enough following, you can reach a lot more people. So those are just some things that you can do to gain more subscribers, to help advocate what you want and reach more people. So now let's move on to actually advocating. So if you go to slide number 3, this is an example of what people did for the Yemen crisis. There were videos of information, or also just some videos that just had like music or whatever. And it was just information about what they're advocating for. And people would watch those videos and put a lot of ads in them, and people could just watch it straight through. And the money from the views and the ads was all donated to the cause that they're advocating for. So that's a really easy way to get people to help your cause, just because people will be able to donate, but they're not actually going to have to spend any money. So that's a really good option. If you can go to the next slide, please. You can link places to donate and petitions to sign in the description. So that's another example of that. So you can also link them in the comments, but especially if you have a large following, a lot of people are likely to just click on the links since it's really easy and accessible. It's right there, and it's just super easy to just go and click on it. And if you go to the next slide, please. So YouTube has a feature where you can add like fundraisers just off to the side of your video. And once again, if you have a big enough following, a lot of people will just press donate. It's like really easy. They can just choose however much money they want to donate. And it's just a really easy way for people to just click like a couple of buttons and just donate to whatever you want them to. So that's my tips on how to advocate on YouTube. Next, we're going to talk about TikTok. If you go to the next slide, please. So on TikTok, it's kind of harder to advocate because the videos that go viral are really hit or miss because of the For You page. I feel like a lot of you guys are probably familiar with that. It's a really popular app right now, but it's a lot harder because it's just kind of like hit or miss for whatever goes on the For You page. But there are some things that can increase your chances of getting views and followers. So the first one being putting popular hashtags in your caption. So as you can see on the picture on the right, circled in the yellow, those are the most popular hashtags right now. These are the ones that are most on the For You page, and that's kind of your goal, is to get onto the For You page and gain a lot of followers. So it is also important to include hashtags that are related to your topic, just so people can find the video. But this is a really easy way for people who maybe don't even know that they're interested in this topic to just like follow you, and yeah, it'll just be a lot more likely to get more viewers. And another way is to just post a ton of the same video, because once again, the For You page is really hit or miss. So if you post a lot of the same video over and over again, it's just one of them is kind of bound to end up on the For You page. And then lastly, the more shares you have, the more likely you're supposed to get a lot of views. So you can share, copy link your own video, or even if you have like some friends or like a sibling, you can just ask them to do that and just comment and stuff, because that will once again make you more likely to get into the For You page. But yeah, so now that you have more views, you can actually start advocating. And once again, there's not a ton of options that you have on TikTok because it is more of a like, just like a short video app. But an easy way to get people to contribute to your cause is just using the link feature on TikTok. You can add petitions and places to donate in your bio. You can also do this thing called Linktree, which is just one link, because I think you can only add one link on TikTok, but it'll bring you, once they click on it, to a bunch of different links. So if you have a bunch of petitions that you want people to donate to, or if you have multiple like foundations that you're advocating for, you can just put that in your bio and it'll lead people to a bunch of different links that they can click. And it'll make it really easy and just like really accessible, and people don't have to put a lot of work into it, because that's one of the biggest things. People don't want to have to do a lot of work. They just want to be able to click a couple of buttons and then just sign the petition. And one of the most important things on TikTok, it's kind of what it's all about, is using interesting and like pleasing sounds. So the sounds are the music behind the video. So you would know that if you have TikTok, it's just whatever music you choose to put behind your video. And of course you want your video to get all the information across, and you want it to be, you know, really informative, and you want it to look good. But the sound is also really important. More people are likely to watch your entire video and see all the information that you're trying to advocate for if it's a nice sound and a nice looking video. And yeah, those are all my tips. So does anyone have any questions?
Okay, so we're going to spend the rest of the time. As I said, our organization, we are journalism-based, storytelling-based, whether we do that with written, reported stories or through artwork. And, so obviously our first thing always is, how do you raise your digital voice? Well, you pitch places to, newspapers and media places and you digitally get them online. But then of course we realize, you know, not everyone likes to write, not everyone wants to be a journalist. So, you know, and that this is a session that we did before at the end of a COVID plus, you know, session, but we're gonna spend the last bit of time talking about alternative story format. So, you know, on here, and let me go back to my gallery view so I can see, I'm gonna ask a couple questions again. Are there any illustrators on here? I wanna talk to the artists a little bit now. Are there any like artists, illustrators, comics artists, photographers? Anyone doing any other kind, yeah, painting, any type of other thing? Okay. Kind of talking to you guys. I am not one of them. I can only draw stick figures. But we're gonna talk about ways that you can you know, sort of raise the caliber of the things, you know, the posts that you make, so that you're not just dealing with you know, text, or you're not maybe only just sharing things. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's see, Luke, or I'm getting a couple things in the chats that someone's audio isn't going through, and I'm not like very techy or anything, but I don't know if someone can look into the chat or whatever and maybe see if you can answer those questions. But in the meantime, I'm going to share my screen now, hopefully. All right, and we're just going to look at some alternative ways, right, of just getting stories out there. Mostly, I'm going to focus on the ones that have pictures, etc. So let's see, we're going to use this button. One thing that I was struck by when I went to some of the COVID plus presentations over the last few weeks was just, you know, I was, for one, was like really impressed by the type of people, like the topics and these amazing experts that World Affairs Council, you know, just brought and made free and available, that like any high school student could have had access. And one thing that we've been talking about at iGeneration Youth, I guess I'll, at iGeneration Youth, is just how, you know, with the pandemic raving and, you know, people being locked at, well, not necessarily, you know, people being stuck at home or whatever, but it's just how, you know, information, how there's sort of been like a flattening of, you know, like how accessibility is sort of been, you know, has increased. I mean, once upon a time, you know, you guys would have all been in school for one thing. So I mean, many of the things that were happening during the daytime, like you couldn't have gone to them. But I mean, you know, there are so many like experts and so many people, you know, who ordinarily you just wouldn't have access to, you just wouldn't get to speak to. And for example, you know, I think Hope showed a slide in the Twitter part of the presentation where there was a doctor, so World Affairs Council partnered with the Center for Vaccine Research here in Pittsburgh, and brought a doctor who's like the director of it, like real big shot, doing really important work, who was like working on one of the, you know, the vaccines for the COVID-19, and I really hope, you know, he gets one soon. But the point is, you know, they had these amazing people on, and just through Zoom, like we were literally able to just like go to Zoom, you know, ask questions. You know, many of the times people will give you their email and say like, get in touch or whatever. And it's a way to make connections with people that you normally wouldn't. But then like, when you make all of these connections, like what can you do with them? And for us as journalists, it's easy. We're like, oh, we'll just, you know, reach out and ask, you know, Kathleen and her team, like, wow, can you connect us with that doctor? Can you connect us with those people so we can write an article and we send it out to MSN, and that's the end of it. But like, if you're not a writer, like what, you know, how else can you get involved? So that's what I'm gonna be just focusing on for the last bit. And there are some IGY artists here that I may put them on the spot and ask them to sort of chime in a little bit. So an alternative story format in journalism, we call them ASFs for short. It's basically any article, like any news type of article that is not put out in a traditional way. So, you know, we think about like 360 content. I mean, you know, if you're doing advocacy or you're making a presentation, these things are expensive, you know, they're time consuming, they're expensive in terms of time or cost to make. And you don't want to like, you know, take the effort to like do something advocacy related and then just have it like end there, right? So we just put together some quick ways that even if you don't really like writing, that you can get involved in something. So let's take, for example, you know, you do a seminar, and we'll use the COVID, this is not it, but you do any seminar, right? These days, most of the time when people do seminars, even like this one, they're recorded, right? And so, you're able to go back and you can go back and you can access them. One of the easiest ways to do an article is just a Q&A. So I mean, like, it would be very easy to, go to, get a video. If you use one of the transcription services, you can literally like use a public link, and you can, use one of those services that's like 10 cents a minute, which would cost you $4 literally to transcribe, or like $6 to transcribe something that was an hour. And then it's like, I mean, you can literally take the moderator's questions, the answers, you can make a Q&A, you could put a title, a subhead on it, and you can literally submit that.
Testing my audio real quick. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Never mind.
That's okay. Yay, Aaron, I can hear that you're working now. So great. So a Q&A is something that is like super easy to produce. Newspapers are definitely interested in a Q&A if the Q&A is happening with an expert that's like notable. Right now is what I'm saying is around the internet, whether it's through World Affairs Council or other places, there are experts, like, I mean, you can pick and choose. They're just all over the place and really easy to get to. So a Q&A is something that's, sort of really easy to put together, and you can send that out. The other thing that is cool about, Q&As, I mean, you can make lists from Q&As. You can take some of those same little tidbits from, the questions and answers, could make, cool posts. I mean, one quote in itself could be a post on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. You can make lists out of them pretty easily. So recently we worked with the mayor's office in the city of Pittsburgh to produce some content around the census. And, the census is super, super, super important. But I know from, being a million years ago when I was a teenager, there's no one who could have asked me or told me or tried to force me to read anything about the census, because it wasn't going to happen. Yet at the same time, if you can, you can, Hope, this is actually your article. If you, find cool statistics or cool facts or whatever, and put it together with, some great artwork, all of a sudden, you may have something that, that can just be more appealing that people may, want to look at. Quizzes. This is another thing, when the measles was raging. Do you guys remember when, like, there was a whole measles problem? And that, and this is Aljua's article, who is here. Hi, Alju. And, once again, we wanted to do something about the measles, because, I mean, it's important, and people died from the measles also. And, we were trying to sort of get that good information out there. But once again, we thought, if we just wrote an article that it's like, you should get your vaccine shot, don't die from the measles or whatever. I'm not gonna lie, as a teenager, I would have totally bypassed that. But like, we ended up, using, we did a Q&A with a doctor, or Aljua did a Q&A with a doctor, got factual information, put it together in a quiz format, and then we actually made a digital game out of this. And online, we actually spent a ton of money, like a whole bunch of money, developing these proprietary like quizzes and games and things. And then one day, I don't know why I didn't do it first, I happened to Google how to make a quiz and found out that there were all kinds of free resources online that you can make quizzes that, are probably even like prettier and better and easier than ours. So quizzes are another way that you can get your things out. I mean, I play quizzes, lots of people play quizzes, and they're, easy to do. For people who are into sort of like gaming and those types of things, I mean, you can also, and that is the measles quiz that we produced. There's the whole concept of like serious games or applied games are games, not like Monopoly or Minecraft or whatever, but when you're using the medium of games to like put out important information. So I mean, that's a thing that if you're advocating for a cause that's important, but like, maybe you want people to understand more about it, or you want to educate people about it, but like, maybe they wouldn't just read an article about it or whatever, but maybe they would play a game where, that they're learning about a topic you want them to, just through a less serious way, but they're still going to pick it up anyway. Photographs, images. I mean, everybody nowadays has a cell phone. Most people, take photos. For us, I mean, we have a feature at iGeneration Youth where, we'll tell a whole story just in photographs. I mean, we do one called Photo Tales, where it's literally 10 photos, a few captions or whatever that tell a complete story. This, by the way, is not a mess up. This is just because of the way we print it. It's the bleed that makes it look like that. But you know, I mean, you could put together a slideshow, a photo show, and newspapers and media companies are actually kind of wild about them. So it's like, you know, if you love photography, you can even submit photos by, you know, cell phone, because most things are intended just for the web nowadays. Comics journalism is one that you know, that's something I love comics. I can't draw for anything, but leftover from childhood, I really love comics. This is another thing, you know, and comics journalism is a thing. I mean, you have, you know, there are, I can't remember the name, but there's like a famous journalist who's like a, you know, he's a war reporter, and he uses comics as his medium, and he's literally like on the front lines and, you know, puts out his stories as comics, which I cannot imagine like sitting on the front lines drawing when I'm trying to like protect my life. I'm gonna use a couple of minutes to like the few minutes that are left to talk about comics journalism. Yeah, I'm not gonna go through the rest of the things, but just sort of how to tell a story. So Erin, are you still open for just chatting a little bit about you know, maybe using comics for something more serious? Because this was something that people indicated that they might be interested in learning more about. So this is Erin.
I'm fine.
Oh, can I just say something before we begin? Just one thing. Sorry to interrupt, because in my previous last time when I spoke to you, like 10 minutes ago, I said I joked about Bill Gates not being as a CEO of Microsoft. So I made a mistake, because the CEO of Microsoft is Satya Nadella. So as not to keep you with fake news. That's it. Thank you. Have a good night. I'm staying here.
Thank you.
Please do.
Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, we only have a couple minutes left. So actually, let me just introduce Erin, who is a comics artist and an illustrator with IGY. I just did your introduction, but yeah. So can you just talk a little bit about comics? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Erin, and if I'm going to say a little bit about comics, about pushing forward comics with a more serious tone, I would say that know the audience who you're going to, because depending on the comic you're trying to make, it depends on how colorful and how aesthetically pleasing you're going to try to make the comic. If you're making it towards adults are not really going to look forward to all these colors and characters. They don't care. They're here for the information, but they want to take it in a more palatable way. They don't want to read a whole article. They just want to get the facts from a quick comic. They like seeing the art, but it's not the most important thing. If you're trying to push it towards a kid or even a teenager, they're going to look for the aesthetics in it. So it's going to send you a little bit more in the art department than in the just writing. And one of the main things that I learned about in comics besides that would be the fact that when it comes to trying to keep people engaged, comedy is probably one of the best things you could possibly use for it. As probably dark as that sounds, depending on certain tragedies or certain things, the way you're going to get certain people is if you keep them engaged throughout the whole thing. One thing that I kept seeing was this comic book artist that was covering things such as certain tragedies that happened, injustices, wage gaps, and he would like throw in a little satire or a little joke in between it to keep the person like laughing at it, because what you don't want is your reader to read your comic and then as they're reading it, they get so overwhelmed with information or just so depressed that they don't want to read anymore, because that's not good for your mental health. You're gonna have to give them their highs and lows, like, oh, I'm getting all this information, but oh, there's a slight satire. Oh, this is really serious, but oh, he's giving me information. You have to keep them reader engaged throughout, and that you can either do that through certain visual cues in the comic itself or certain other things. If I could like share my screen real quick for one of the comics that I had to make, that I was making for them for IGN. Give me a second. Let me just get it ready.
You are a co-host now, so
let me see this. Lori saw it, but like a screen share real quick. How do I do that? Yeah, I forgot. I don't know how to screen share. Yeah, forget it. So basically, one of the things that
I'll probably find the comic. Which one are you you know what?
The first one I sent to you, the one with the single panel one.
Okay, hold on. All right. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Yep. Hold on. All right. Okay. Just keep chatting for a second. I have them here, but I just have to
get it. Yeah. The reason I'm trying to get this one is because it shows something about like combining a serious issue with some form of levity to keep.
I've got it. Okay, so I'll share my screen.
All right. Thank you. This is literally the one I was trying to talk about, because when I made this, it was in like the peak of the COVID epidemic. So things were happening, and it seemed as if everyone was angry at everyone because there was a split between people saying, "Oh, we want to go out. This can't stop us," and people saying, "Just stay at home. We're trying to save lives here." So one thing I was trying to make it was the fact that like the entire point of this comic is just stay home. It's not that hard. Like it's actually surprisingly easy. But the way I made it was that I had to use a little bit of comedic separation between using this over explanation of what's really happening, and then when the reader looks at it and they see that they're just sitting in front of a TV doing things that everyone for the longest while has been saying unhealthy, sitting in front of the TV, eating, just watching things. It gives a message. It's also a little joke, some cutesy image that I was trying to make, but at the same time, it also shows exactly how easy it is to flatten this curve if you really tried. Going out and everything is as important to everyone as it should be. Humans are social creatures, but at the same time, when push comes to shove and there's a sickness going around, you have to stay inside. That's just one of the things I was trying to illustrate when I said giving a serious topic just a little bit of levity with it. And I've seen a couple more of people doing this in like certain other ways, like drawing like a lot more tragedy and mixing it in a way that makes people not like outright opposed to it. I can't say with 100% certainty that me personally, I could take the most troubling issue and make it palatable for everyone. Every artist, one thing that they all do is that because of their experiences, because of the way that they are as a person, their art is reflective of that. So every single thing that every artist will do was impart a bit of their personality into their art. I personally, for one, try to make people laugh or try to make it so that there's a bright side to everything, or that there's something to smile about. That's just personally what I feel like doing. Some other people will make it so that they actually just like, no, people need to know the information first before they even get anything. So their art might just reflect the reality of what's happening, and all power to them. But knowing who you are and who you're drawing your comics for is really important, because someone might be coming in saying, "Oh, I'm here for a little for the funny pages. I'm just here to see someone poke a jab at it," and they just get a list of facts that just makes them feel worse. Or someone might be here saying, like I said earlier, "Oh, I'm here for information," and then there's a bunch of jokes, and they're just like, "Now's not the time for that." So one of the things about comics that is really flexible is the fact that the audience of who you're trying to present it to will influence what you're drawing and how you're going to draw it. That's more or less what I was trying to say, or what I had to say. Laura, you're muted.
Okay, yeah. No, I just said thank you, and I said I love that comic when I saw that. I love all of your work, and yeah, I thought it was was really effective. I realize it is 4:03, and we are like 3 minutes over our time. So I'll just say, if anyone has any questions, does anyone have any quick questions? Okay, thank you for coming. I don't know how we normally end these things, so I'm just thank you everyone for coming. If I'm, we are iGeneration Youth. We can, if you want to find us, or World Affairs Council, and follow us, and stay in touch. I'm sure the World Affairs Council stuff is in the email. I will say, I'm sort of relatively new to Pittsburgh area, but World Affairs Council is one of the youth organizations that I will definitely say that I see them doing like amazing stuff. I think, no matter where you are in the world, I mean, they have a global perspective, I think that they're worth following. I think their programs are worth going to or whatever. I would suggest following them. Might follow us too. We'll follow you back. And with that, I'll just turn it back over to Kathleen in case there's anything that you want to part with.
Thanks so much, Lori. I just want to, we'll just close with saying, please do continue to stay engaged with the council, with Global Minds, and with iGeneration Youth. We all are active on social media. I'll also be following up with students who register to make sure to share with you links to all of the seminars and to this workshop if you're interested in going back and revisiting any of this content. And also with a survey so that we can get feedback to think about how to be delivering this content to you all in the best possible way. So we would appreciate if you would be responsive to that as well. We'd love to hear your voice. And we hope to see you again at some of our future programs. So thank you so much for joining today, and please continue talking about and raising your voice about these really important issues in society. So thanks for all that you do, and stay well.
Thank you. And thanks to all the presenters. You guys did a great job. Thank you.